UPSC.com. So we are starting with the 8th chapter of science. So you have to click on UPSC or you can click on chapter number 9 on environment. What is a herb? So a plant with a tender and green stem but no branches. Example, tomato is an example of herb. A shrub is also a tiny plant, but it has a thin and hard stem, and branches are mostly near the base of the plant, which is close to the ground. So, an example of shrub is lemon. Trees are thick with brown stems. They are very tall with branches near the top. So, mango is an example of tree. Banyan is also an example of tree, and many others are there. Usually in trees we see that the branchy part of the tree, many branches are there towards the top, and that is known as the crown of the tree. So you may note that down. Branchy part of the tree is known as crown. Whereas when there are smaller trees and the height is not much, that branchy part of small trees is known as understory. The branches form a crown in a tall building, whereas for a short tree they form a understory. Creepers are also part of trees or plants, and in creepers usually the stems are so weak that they cannot survive without the support of a strong stem plant or a support. It can be any structure, otherwise the stems would just spread on the ground. So money plants, grapevines, gourd, bitter gourd, beanstalk, these are the examples of common creepers. Next part focuses on the parts of different plants. So some of the important parts are stem, which is used for conducting water and minerals from the roots to the other parts of the plant. Then there is petiole. So it is a part of the leaf, and it is the mechanism or mode through which a leaf is attached to a stem. The next part is known as lamina. So lamina is a part, it is the broad and green colored part of the leaf. Then on the lamina you will find thin lines known as veins, and these veins have a thick middle line which is known as the midrib. The design of the veins can be of many types. For example, it can be a net-like structure, or they can be parallel to each other. So depending upon the type of the design, there is reticulate venation and there is parallel venation. Reticulate means like a net. Transpiration of plants. So leaves release water continuously in the form of water vapor, and this evaporation of water from the leaves is actually an advantage for the leaf, because as the vapor cools, the temperature of that leaf also drops and it keeps the plant cool. As well as when water becomes vaporized, a suction pull is created, and that pull is responsible for bringing the nutrients or other materials in the roots towards a greater height. So there are two advantages of transpiration. Although excessive transpiration can lead to drying, but one advantage is that it allows nutrients to reach to greater heights, and also it moderates the temperature of the plant. Next part is about the important plant tissues. So only two types of plant tissues are named. One is the xylem, and this tissue is responsible for transportation of water and minerals. Whereas the second tissue, known as phloem, is responsible for conduction of only food, and so using this tissue a plant can survive. The disadvantage of xylem is that only unidirectional movement is possible. However, phloem is bidirectional movement enabler, and so food can be transported to and fro, whereas water and minerals can be transported only in one direction. Next is the process of photosynthesis. As you might already know, it is the process by which leaves prepare food. So carbon dioxide is essential as well as sunlight, and using this and water, food is produced in the form of starch. Oxygen is released in this process, and although at night time sunlight is not available, the amount of oxygen released by photosynthesis during daytime is much higher than the carbon dioxide that the plant releases during the night. And so we say that this world is surviving only because of the plant. However, these steps of photosynthesis, for example, absorption of carbon dioxide and converting it into starch and then releasing the oxygen, all these steps need not occur together. They can occur in a staggered manner also. Next is the mechanism behind photosynthesis. The following things are needed for photosynthesis. Number one, light energy has to be absorbed by chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a pigment found in the plastids of a plant cell. So plastids are not present in animal cells. Plastids are of two types, white and green. So the green colored plastids contain chlorophyll pigment. And more information about this was given in the previous video. You can refer to them. Conversion of light energy into chemical energy is done, and then splitting of the water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen. So this leads to reduction of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates or starch. Like I said, these steps involved in photosynthesis did not occur immediately. They can occur after a delay from each other also. Leaves take in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through the pores that are present on their surface, and these pores are known as stomata. So you can note that down. Each stomata is surrounded on both the sides by guard cells, and these guard cells are responsible for opening as well as closing of the stomata. Leaves also have a green pigment known as chlorophyll, like I already said, and roots can also take in air from the soil. So both water, air, and ground contribute to photosynthesis. The type of food production in plants can be many ways. The first is that photosynthesis. However, there are certain plants which are parasitic plants, and even though these plants carry out photosynthesis, they do not get sufficient nutrition from the soil, and therefore other forms of getting nutrition are also created in these plants. So one is the pitcher plant, which is an insectivorous plant, and it captures the insects and traps them and then consumes them. So it is insectivorous. Fungi like yeast and mushrooms, these are known as saprotrophs. So you can note down that they feed mostly on decaying matter. There is also a very complex organism known as lichen, and lichen is actually algae and fungus living together. So the algae and the fungus form a symbiotic association, that is, they help each other to survive. The algae produces the food by photosynthesis, whereas the fungi absorb the water and nutrients and give the shelter to the algae. So together they bring and protect each other. Lichens is also a good indicator of a pollution because they do not grow in polluted areas. So absence of lichens usually means that pollution is high. One important bacteria found in the soil is rhizobium. This bacteria converts the nitrogen present in the atmosphere into a soluble form. And this soluble form is then absorbed by leguminous plants like moong, etc. So these leguminous plants do not need nitrogenous fertilizer because of this bacteria known as rhizobium. So you may note that down. Then there is another fungi known as mycorrhizal fungi, and this mycorrhizal fungi is responsible for helping plants absorb phosphorus from the soil. Then Frankia is a nitrogen fixing bacteria, and it is for non-leguminous plants. There are also other means by which plants can fix nitrogen. One is by blue-green algae, nostoc, azotobacter, as well as the lightning process. So these four also convert atmospheric nitrogen into soluble form which can be consumed by the plant. However, excess use of nitrate or nitrogenous fertilizers can lead to a disease known as hemoglobina. So it is also called the blue baby syndrome. So when nitrogen fertilizers are used, nitrate enters into the soil and dissolves in the groundwater. And when this groundwater rises up and is consumed for drinking, it leads to a disease known as blue baby syndrome. There are now just two more topics. Number one is roots and their features. Roots are important for parts of the plant. They absorb water and nutrients by a process known as osmosis. And they also help in anchoring the plant to the soil. Then roots have minute hair-like projections. So these root hairs increase the surface area of the root for absorption. There are mainly two types of roots. One is the tap root system, in which there is a single main root and there are multiple side roots or lateral roots that come out of the main root. There is also a fibrous root system where there is not single main root, but there is a hair-like root structure. Some plants like banyan or grass roots allow roots to arise from other parts of the plant also. So this system is known as adventitious roots. Three types of roots are mainly found in the plant. However, if you study it further, plants having tap root systems have reticulate venation, whereas plants having fibrous roots usually have parallel venation systems. So there is a connection between the type of roots and the type of venation. Then there is a small topic related to various types of nutrients. Macronutrients and micronutrients are the two types of nutrients into which elements can be categorized. Macronutrients have to be allowed in large numbers by the plant, whereas micronutrients are needed in very small amounts. Then miscellaneous facts about the plant and its health. Green manure is a term that is given to the cover crop that is planted on the field. So before the actual crop is planted, some cover crop is planted and then it is plowed inside the soil. So this plant will then decay and add nutrients into the soil. So it is like a fertilizer, and hence this is known as green manure. Green manures are of two types, leguminous and non-leguminous. So you can note down this example of leguminous and non-leguminous green manure. So leguminous is cowpea and soybean, whereas the non-leguminous are these four. The non-leguminous do not add any nitrogen contents, whereas the leguminous are nitrogen fixers. So they improve the nitrogen content of the soil. whereas the non-legumes increase the biomass and also help in the suppression of weeds. A small fact is given about the cocaine plant as well as the uh, opium plant. So cocaine is banned in India. It is obtained from the coca plant, and this is a South American variety of plant. And cocaine is used as a drug. Whereas there is also another plant that is banned, known as cannabis, and through this cannabis we obtain charas, ganja, hashish, and marijuana. Opium is obtained from poppy plant. So this is another drug, morphine, cocaine, and heroin. So heroin and opium, these are pain reducers, and usually they are administered to patients having cancer in the last stages so that the pain can be reduced. Morphine is also used as a painkiller, so it is an extreme painkiller. Usually we see that in a war when soldiers are injured, morphine is administered to them. These four are obtained from the poppy plant, whereas agriculture of poppy plant has been allowed in India, but a license is needed for that. Right. So these were the questions from the chapter on environment and plant. If you are confident with this, then you can answer our quiz. 5 questions, 5 easy answers, and if you can score 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5, you can move to the next chapter. Thank you.